Good evening, fellas. Domination tips. I'm reporting right back to give you another awesome tutorial. A little scientist outside it's quite loud because some guys at my university are celebrating because of new students are arriving for the next year. And I already closed my window, but they are so loud I still keep hearing them, and I think, and I hope you can nevertheless understand me. Let's keep a little Worldwar tutorial, or not tutorial, an update which guides us to our day tutorial. And we can see in our Worldwar history over here, we got our 112 victory out of 113 battles, so only one lost battle, like before. Come on, please actualize. You see over here, our last 40 Worldwar, so far we fought against Nations, a Russian army, and they were quite using sandbag tactic, like you probably know when you have seen DomiNations or Estonia videos or whatever. The Alliance was quite using really high global age accounts and even very low industrial Iron Age or even classical age accounts to drop their average strength, and so that their best players are far better than we are. For example, my mirror number is complete age higher than me. Very many buildings maxed out in the global age. You will see it. My attack is only 1 hour. 1 hour in the future, and then I will attack and I will show you in another video. But the result was we ended up 195 to 195 stalemate, but we won because of 0.1% of average destruction. We had 0.1 average destruction more than the enemy, and therefore we won. But unfortunately, we searched another Worldwar, and bad guys, which enemy we found? Nations again, and I think this time they are really angry and try to beat us, and I only can say they are so strong, they ordinary should beat us. I'm hoping that we can win again, but I'm not very optimistically, but we'll see. I will give everything. The tutorial I made for you today is about new Worldwar bases, which are quite established and were quite strong against even very much higher enemies. We are talking about global age players which already have 4 planes, more troop capacity, very strong more troops. And they were not able to 5-star these bases. I want to show you now. We are talking about, I'm not quite sure how to call it. These are bases which have, like my ordinary base, some holes in the walls. Probably like a maze, I think, like a labyrinth. I will show you guys. Here we are at our at my maze Worldwar base design. So make sure to make a screenshot. I can show you even the base design without the complete circles. You can now make a screenshot if you are interested. This is a very strong maze design, which is designed to dismiss or to distract the enemy troops, which are running all over, running into the traps. Because we have holes in our wall, not completed walls on purpose, but we'll talk about it later. First, let me guide you through my ordinary list to explain and describe the layout and what I thought with all thinkings behind. This layout is quite live for the Worldwar, like I told you, like you can obviously see, because the town center is quite in the middle of the base. How have we done this? We have some different wall layers. We have one first wall layer, which is, by the way, not closed on purpose, like I told you, which is close to the town center. Only one layer of defensive buildings around it, and then we have one big second wall layer right around, which is also not closed, to give the enemy some opportunities to enter the base. The position on our map, we have positioned our town center right in the middle because we have the luxurious situation that we have 4 mortars in the industrial age. I also made this layout for the enlightenment age, and also I tried to make it for the gunpowder age, but in gunpowder age we have just simply not enough walls to realize it. And in the enlightenment age we have the problematic situation that very many defensive buildings are missing, like our cannon tower, both bunkers, the air defenses and something like that, and that we have only 3 mortars. So the complete base design is some kind of asymmetric, and so you have to overthink by placing the town center a little bit more to the right, left, or whatever side. So we are still experimenting to get a sufficient Enlightenment Age base layout, but this Industrial Age base layout definitely established, and in the last World War, even with some coalitions active, enemy players from the Global Age only took 3, at least the strongest enemy players only took 4 stars, which quite easily 5 stars other industrial bases by us, which were quite strong, even with 2 town centers which were placed very right. So this base design, even without a second town center, was quite strong, like we can see. The enemy influence we take on the enemy. Like I told you, we have 4 entrances over here, which are very symmetrical. And so when the enemy is attacking or even rallying inside the walls at a place or even at a defensive building or at the town center, the troops very often are splitting up, running through different entrances. And we have protected every entrance on another way, like you can see. I will later talk to you. We have a very main focus of traps on this entrance, because here is the probably worst defense with our Colosseum only. Over here we have all our defensive spawning buildings. Over here we have the castle with our generals and some more traps. And over here we have the Versailles as big, huge caltrop trap. But we'll talk on later. Our purpose or the aim of us is to distract the enemy troops and make them run around and probably enter the base at our holes in the walls, so that they are staying right inside the traps, are getting slowed down or even reduced by their damage, and so that our troops can deal some damage to them and that they are losing very much time, sorry. So now let's come to the defensive buildings. I will always explain it to you, so I'm again explaining our mortars, our main defensive buildings, like I can tell you. The mortars have the highest range in the game of firing buildings. Only with the last update 4.7 the sniper towers were released, and only the sniper towers have a huger range of the mortars, but of all other buildings which are common or ordinary or before, the mortar has the highest range of 9, I think. I'm not quite sure, but you can see the ranges right over here if you see the right mortars. So the right circles or ranges of the mortars are detailed in this graphic and show how the mortars in reality, if you build the space, are shooting. And mortars are very strong against enemy infantry or mass marksman troop, which are spawning or attacking in a mass, because they are dealing area of damage. They are only firing, like nearly all other defensive buildings, every 3 seconds, and they are quite harmless against enemy cavalry or against enemy tanks, because their total damage is really low. So they have a really high range, but they have a big weakness against enemy tanks or even against enemy cavalry. And our next point in our list is to compensate these weaknesses, and we can do this easily by letting cooperate one mortar with one cannon tower, because the cannon tower quite works other way around like a mortar. It is also a single target hit building, which only shoots at 1 unit, but it is also firing every 3 seconds only. But the damage it is dealing is very multiplied higher than the of the mortar. The big weakness of our cannon tower is when it's only firing for one enemy, that big masses of enemy, like infantry guys and masses of enemy ranged infantry, are really easy overwhelming these towers. So we are placing them right to another, that you can see over here. We have the same combination everywhere at the base. We have quite the same combination of mortars and cannon towers to protect each other and to let them cooperate. Let's get back to our mortars. You can see the mortars are placed really symmetrical at the corners of our town center, and then you can see that the right mortar is protecting the bottom and the top mortar, the bottom mortar, the left and the right, the left mortar, the top and the bottom mortar, and the top mortar, the left and the right mortar. So every mortar is protecting 2 other mortars, and we have right in the center of our base a really focused area where all mortars are able to shoot. Also, our mortars are able to shoot all over the base. There is no hidden spot within the base, even not outside of the base, next to the walls, which is hidden or closed by the eyes of the mortar, so that they cannot shoot over there. So our mortars can fire at the enemy even when the enemy is marching on our base, and shoot it anytime when he gets close or even through our walls. The air defenses, we have placed all of our air defenses right in the center to protect our most important buildings like the command post, our bunkers, probably the tank depots or stables over here, the tank depot, the mortars, the town center itself, our redoubts, and so all air defenses are quite in the center of our base. Then we have our redoubts. Two of our redoubts are quite at the mace arms, which are leading to the outside and which should be attractive entries for the enemy troops. Our last redoubt was not placed over here. I placed this redoubt right outside because I wanted to get the street bonus, some additional hit points for my town center. Therefore, I placed the oil refinery over here. I will talk about this purpose later. And so we see our third redoubt is right at the outside. And here we have no redoubt. Here we are just relying on the power of our spawning troops, which get boosted by the Acropolis. Our bunkers are placed really symmetrical at the right top and on the very left side of our base, so that they are nearly, just perfectly at the outer range of our Acropolis, but within the range, and so boosted by the effect of the Acropolis. And also they are placed very close to cannon towers, so that if the enemy troops are aiming for heavy tanks, which they can sneak by the betrayal tactic from us, that the heavy tanks very, very easy and very fast getting destroyed before they can be harmful to any of our buildings or even the town center at all. Now let's talk about our traps. We have placed our traps at all of our mace arms of the base design, because these are the arms or the ways where the enemy most with the highest chance is entering the base, because enemy troops, especially the enemy healing cards or supply cards, are very, very often, even if not always, choosing the shortest way right inside the base. Even when, or especially when your walls are very high, like in my example, my walls are on level 10, on some of my walls on level 11, and so it costs some time for the enemy to go through the walls. So very often the troops are deciding not to go through the walls, but to choose the closest way by going around and using the entries we let on purpose for the enemy troops. Then they are running quite into our traps, and we see perfectly placed over here very symmetrical caltrops, so barbed wire over here, so that all troops, especially the troops which are getting harmful to our town center, are staying right inside the barbed wire when they are getting in range of the town center. So when the enemy is rallying, his troops will place somewhere over here, over here, over here, or over here. So they will stay quite inside the barbed wire when they are getting in range of the town center, because enemy tanks are not the harmful troops, and also not enemy infantry, but enemy marksmen and enemy cannons or even artillery are very harmful and the most dangerous troops to our town center, and they are shooting with range, even 4 up to 5 range. So that's exactly the range we placed our barbed wire, so that the troops are perfectly standing in, getting slowed down by 45%, and even getting having reduced damage of 45%. So they have very many more. They are have to spend. Sorry, they have to spend, guys. They have to spend much more time to kill our defensive buildings, or even at least the town center, when they are staying right inside the barbed wire. We have also focus of our traps on the right side over here at the Colosseum, like I told you, because the Colosseum is probably the weakest spot of the base, but we have also our strongest air defense over here and our strongest mortar to make it unattractive for the enemy to attack over here, and the most of our traps will also greet the enemy if the enemy is attacking from this side. Next point at my list are the Worldwonders. Quite like I'm ever telling you, the Versailles and the Acropolis are having a very special role in our Worldwonder defensive strategy. But first, let us talk about the Colosseum. The Colosseum is one of the defensive buildings, or even the building in the game, which has the highest range. Now, after releasing the update 4.7 with the Sniper Tower, I'm not quite sure whether the Colosseum has more range than the Sniper Tower, but I think both of them should be have nearly equal the same range. So I think the Colosseum has a range something around 28. So it will go nearly all over the base over here, and so it's not that much important where to place it. Therefore, we have placed it over here. The next point is our Acropolis. And first, I want to mention to you again, like in all videos before, the Acropolis and the Versailles are two of the World Wonders, which effects cannot be destroyed. The buildings itself can be destroyed, but the effects will stay active and alive for the whole attack. Especially the Versailles, you can just not close down or disable the effect, because the effect is just slowing down, and for all attacks, for the whole attack forever, when you attack this base, the slowing down effect is just right inside this range, no matter whether this building is destroyed or not. And even the Acropolis building, you can just not shut down the effect of the Acropolis, you can just only kill the buildings which are within the range. The boost of the Acropolis, I can remind to you, the boost of the Acropolis is about two main aspects. The first main aspect is that it fastens up enemy or our own defensive spawning buildings by 15%. So all troops which are spawned by our defensive spawning buildings are getting spawned 15% faster. No, 20% faster, yes. 20% faster spawning and 15% increase of health points. Sorry for that failure of mine. So all troops which are from the buildings within the range are getting spawned 20% faster and with 15% more health points. And especially our tank depot, our stables, and at least the bunkers are having an advantage of this, because the defenders which are getting spawned by them already have very many hit points, and so the 15% extra or additional hit points are very much more for them than only infantry guys. Like you can see over here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think 9 out of 12, 13. No, 9 out of 10, 11, 12. 9 out of 12 buildings right inside. That's equal to 75%, and that are very many buildings, I think, because it's the effect of the Acropolis is not our main focus on this base layout. We only have to try to I only have to try to get most of the buildings, and therefore I think 9 out of 12 buildings are a very good percentage at least. Our last building, I already have talked about it nearly, the Versailles. The Versailles is working as a big caltrop trap, but it's only slowing down the enemy. It gives no damage penalty to the enemy, so the troops which are within the range, or the yellow marked range I marked for you, of the Versailles are just getting slowed down and moving very, very slowly over here. The big advantage of it is that the range is so much boosted. An ordinary caltrop or barbed wire trap has only a range of, I don't know, I think 1 or 2 even. And the Versailles has a big, much more range. So guys, I think that were all points. No, not all points, our gates. You can see the gates are placed right over here, and over here, so everywhere where also are some entrances on purpose. So the gates have probably no own reason. They are all just staying there to let us have more space for our walls, on more piece of our walls, and because of the holes in our walls, they are just not working as gates in an ordinary way. We have just placed them over there so that enemies can just not send commando troops or even saboteurs within these gates, and therefore they are just giving us some more length for our wall layers. And at least the usage of the exploration or of our available room, like I told you always and ever before, I spread out my buildings as much as possible to use as much area as possible, so that the enemy has to spawn from the forests and has to get over more area or more space, and that costs the enemy hopefully some time, because the buildings are spread out that much. Also, some additional things I want to talk with you about. We have the vault at the very left side of our map. Hopefully the enemy is not recognizing this, and at the end of the attack his troops are all over the base, and then he sees, okay, damn it, the vault is remaining as one of the last buildings. And like you probably know, the vault, also like the oil refinery, are two of the buildings with the most or with the highest hit points. The town center has the highest hit points, then the fort, oil refinery, and the vault have the next highest hit points. And so we have a very high hit point building at the left side, so that the enemy just not easily can send one troop or even one plane to destroy it like an ordinary house. He has to have much more firepower, or even he has to plan in much more time to get rid of this building. The oil refinery right inside the base has probably quite the same sense, and for all players of you which have questioned or asked themselves why we have the oil refinery right inside the base, ordinary, like I told you, this redoubt would stay inside and here would be placed another building. But I wanted to get the extra hit points for my town center, and therefore we had to put the street over here, and so we don't have enough space to place our redoubt over here. Therefore I decided to get my oil refinery over here to add some additional hit points. So when the enemy troops are moving over here, they are just quite first shooting at the oil refinery before they probably shoot on the mortar, on the redoubts, on this mortar or whatever, or at least at our town center. So we are having some additional seconds and some additional time to spawn some enemies, to get the enemy, to avoid that the enemy gets a quick victory, or even other things. We have just some additional hit points within the walls which are attracting the enemy troops before they are shooting at essential or strong and very important buildings in our defensive. I think that were all points, guys. Just give me a feedback how you think about this World War layout. Yes, I'm out, and we'll see us soon. Back to my first World War attack in this new version of our last World War, which we already did. Bye bye, guys.